GrantzRantz number 6, standardized testing. I've been waiting for this one. As someone who is in education for 28 and a half years, I've seen what standardized testing in Ontario has done to the teaching experience for young people. For the first 5 or 6 years that I taught, there was no ministry assessed EQAO. And teachers, back then there was a curriculum obviously, but also teachers decided how best to get the students to learn that curriculum. And there really wasn't a lot of outside pressure as long as you got the results that were needed. And that was that obviously kids are successful. Well, then EQAO came along. And at first I was a young fella and I wasn't worried at all. And I knew my students knew their stuff. I was a grade 6 teacher. So I didn't really get too concerned about the EQAO assessment. And my students did quite well. And in fact, they did very well. And I thought, well, this will be the way it is. That'll be the norm from here on in. It was 5 days in May. And I mean, you ruined 5 days of teaching, but it didn't seem like that big of a deal. And then the pressure came. The pressure came from the province. The pressure came from senior admin. Sure, they would always tell you, well, it's just a snapshot in time. But they were acutely aware that the results for your school are going to be published in a newspaper. So all of a sudden your results were being measured against other schools. And you were trying to validate that you were a good teacher and indeed your students were learning a lot. And so originally, as I stated before, I wasn't all that concerned about standardized testing. And then I started to see how it affected my teaching. And I'm not proud to say this, but you start teaching to the test. Your results were good last year. Well, you want your results even better next year and the next year. And this is problematic. All of a sudden, all the creative, innovative ideas I was using in the classroom, I had to think to myself, is this the best way to use my time to get better EQAO results? And I know that that is an embarrassing statement to make. I am not proud of what I did. I did the best job I could. I still think I was a very, very competent teacher, but I think I was a more competent teacher before the testing. And the crazy thing is about this standardized testing, it is not really standardized. It's marked by people. Parents, don't fall for this fallacy. This is not objective. Most of the questions are marked by teachers in the summer. And what one teacher gives a level 3 to, another teacher might give a level 4 to. And I know they're supposed to meet together and decide, but let's be honest, they're marking thousands of tests. They can't all be marked well. And really, it doesn't even matter if they're marked well. These are not indicators of how well your young person is doing in school. Because the way we teach now, the way we're supposed to teach now anyway, is teaching kids in a variety of fashion. So it's tactile, it's talking about things, it's building things with your hands. These can't be measured on a standardized test. In fact, it's exactly the opposite. Standardized tests are a pant load. And I'm here to beg you, parents, take your kids out of these tests. When they're having EQAO tests, everyone seems to think their kids must take them, that it's ministry mandated. That is not true. You can take your kids out of class for those days, and I beg you to do it. Your kid will learn more at Bacchus Mills walking around looking at bugs than they'll ever learn doing a standardized test. That's not really standardized. What a waste of time, what a waste of money. If I had any balls at all when I was young, and my kids were in grades 3 and 6, I would have pulled them. But the reason I didn't, it wasn't because I thought it was good for my kids. The reason I didn't pull them is because I worked for the board and I wanted to be a good little soldier and not create any waves. If I had to do it again, they would not write. And my son Jackson, he did really well on him. And it wasn't stressful for him, but it wasn't a good use of his time, and I knew that. But I acquiesced and gave into the board's demands because they want all the kids to write. Because if you don't write, you get a 0, and that reflects poorly on the school. This is all about big business, people printing those tests. Guess how, I can't even imagine how much it costs to implement this test. I mean, you got to print it, you have to mark it, you got to test it, you got to see if it works well. I mean, I can remember the very first year we did it, there was a question on there about subways. My kids have never seen a subway. They've gone to a subway, but they've never been in one. So how can this be an objective assessment? This is an absolute pant load. And the only way we're going to create change is for parents to start pulling their kids out when it's EQAO time. They won't listen to teachers. They think we have a vested interest in it being disappeared. And that's not even true. I'll tell you, the 5 easiest days I had as a grade 6 teacher were EQAO days, because all I could do is sit there. You're not allowed to help. You're not allowed to do anything. So I just sat there and watched them write. So if you think it's in our vested interest as teachers to not have the test, well, you're wrong. It has nothing to do with that. It's bad teaching. There's evidence. I Googled this because I wanted some facts. And the PTA.org site, one of their lines is there is little to no benefit on standardized tests. And not to put too much faith in them. I know parents that have actually shopped schools because of EQAO testing. That has nothing to do. I mean, as a teacher, some years I could look at my class and say, wow, what a bright group of students. They're going to do really well on EQAO this year. And then there's the next year, you're thinking, whoo, this might be a little tougher. We might have to really work to get those kids at EQAO levels 3 and 4. For what? You want to know how your kid's doing? Go talk to the teacher. He or she will be able to tell you exactly what your students' abilities are and where they need to work and what they need to improve upon. Standardized testing doesn't do that. It gives you a fraction or a decimal, 2.3. Your kid's at 3.6 or 4.1. Guess what? Who cares? Does your kid like going to school? Does your kid wake up and think, yeah, today's another learning day? Well, I'll tell you what. Lots of kids felt like that before EQAO, and I question whether as many feel like that now. EQAO, standardized testing, equals pant load. Parents, please boycott. Grant out.